Hi guys, welcome back to the channel and a further episode on trying to sort out the Shovelhead. When we left you last time I couldn't get the rotor off, so I have invested in a tool which I hope will do the job. So we might as well just get stuck in. I'll show you what the tool is and we'll go and see if it works. So off we go. Right, this is what I've got. I bought it on picture alone because I reckoned, looking at the picture, that had to be, that sort of size, and therefore the holes were going to be very close to the centre, which they are. So I reckoned that would probably fit. And the thing that made me just buy it anyway was the whole thing delivered was £9.17p or something, I can't remember exactly, under a tenner delivered to my door. So given I had to find something to get this job done, this seemed like a good bet. So let's go and have a look and see if it'll work. Right, that's it in place. Let's see if it'll do anything. Well, it's definitely moving, which is a good thing, and without too much effort as well, so it just shows that it did actually need a puller. Let's switch to a smaller ratchet, shall we? Surprisingly tough, given you're meant to be able to pull them off, but there you go, it's off. So let's get it on the bench and just have a check of it. Right, there's our stator, held on by 4 Allen-headed bolts by the looks of it. Yeah, there's a lot of oil around, so that seal's definitely leaking. The crank seal behind there is definitely leaking. So we've got 4 Allen heads. I don't know if you can see that. On the other side is a little plate with 2 screws, which seems to hold in the connector. So I'll just pull them and we'll see what we can see. Everything's so oily. Must be leaking a lot behind there. There we go. Right. Get those undone. Right, little plastic clip. So I can only assume that's got to come this way. Let me try tapping down on that from the other side. Right, there we are. Right, there's our rotor. I've only wiped, haven't cleaned it yet. But it all looks good. Everything seems to be clean, no gouging. No, I'm happy with that. Once that's cleaned up, we'll be going back on. It looks absolutely fine. And then our stator, which definitely won't be going back on because it's got the burnt out connector, as I mentioned. The wiring is very brittle, and the wiring there has melted off, which is that the one that's burnt out? No, it's not. So as you can see, the wiring is not looking great, but it's been changed now anyway. There's no really obvious signs of anything melting as such, other than the connector. But given how brittle that is, it was on its last legs. So it's been changed. I will keep the pair of them together for the minute. So we have a spacer and an oil seal like we had on the gearbox. The problem is this one's been put in reversed, presumably because the primary side is now wet. But anyway, we've got to get that seal and that spacer out there, so we're going to have to use our pick again. That's marked there already. It's definitely leaking, as you can see. You've seen where the crank seal is. Now let me just explain what my issue with this is. It has a spacer, just like the one on the gearbox, but smaller. In fact, I better check that fits. Hold on a second. Yeah, that might be it, as long as it fits on a step. We'll just have to wait till we take it out. Anyway, the important bit's the seal. Now, I was warned about this as well. When the bike was made, the seal went in that way, which traps the oil in the crank, because the primary side relied on, I believe, a vacuum system which kept oil mist, I suppose, circulating, but then returned it to the tank. That's my understanding of it. I'm sure there'll be better explanations out there. That's my understanding of it. So when people go to a wet primary, the advice is to turn the seal that way around to keep the oil in the primary. But I don't. Two things. One, I don't understand how that happens, how that works. Because even if there is oil in the primary and it's splashing about, this sits behind the stator, which then sits behind the rotor, which is spinning. So the oil's got to get up and behind all that lot, up to the crank, and then through the seal to get into the bottom end of the engine. Which, it may be me, I'm willing to admit this is probably me, but I'm not sure I fully understand the benefits of reversing the seal. Anyway, the seal that's in there now has been reversed. And I'll show you when to take it out, but whoever's fitted it has obviously lined it up, and then because you've got nothing to get a grip of to drive it in, there's punch marks all the way around the inside of the seal where they've used a punch to drive the seal into place. So one, I don't think that's a very good way of sealing that outer edge at all. And two, it's going to make it a major pain getting it out. Anyway, we shall cross that bridge when we come to it, but I have a feeling that when this goes back in, I will be fitting it that way back in and take the risk. I'll risk the chance of oil getting up behind the rotor, past the stator, along the crank half output shaft, through the seal and then into the bottom end. Because I think it's a risk worth taking. So anyway, let's keep going. I know this is turning into a major job, not helped by my complete inexperience of these motors, because I think I have other problems. Having done all this so far, I keep finding things where I think, that doesn't look too good. So I suspect that even when we've done all this, there's going to be more. Anyway, let's keep going. I want apologies, by the way, if I sound really peculiar at the minute, but I've got a stinking cold. Right, onward and upward. Right, I've drilled a hole in the seal like I did with the output shaft, gearbox output shaft seal. And I've just got to hook it in there. Try and get a bit of a leverage. Right. There we go. I'll show you the punch marks. I'll get the macro lens out, show you the punch marks. And then there's our spacer. Now, unfortunately, there are two problems. That cloth was dry when I left it. Now, it's been a few days, admittedly, because I've got a lot of other things going on. But it's now completely oil soaked and there's oil on the floor, which always looks worse than it really is, to be honest. Oil leaks always, especially on a painted floor like this, it always looks worse. But it's quite clear that that seal has been leaking from the crank into the primary, which goes back to my worry about the orientation of the oil seal. And then the second issue is that clearly the crank has got a lot of oil in it, which it shouldn't have. I mean, it's meant to be a dry sump effectively. Now, shovel heads have a reputation for wet sumping, but this does seem quite bad. So once we've built up this side, I'm going to have to take the oil pump off, because I want to check that the spring in the ball that acts as a seal when it's sitting is actually doing its job. And also, in between the feed and scavenge side of the pumps, there is an oil seal. And apparently when it starts to leak, the transfer of oil between the two can also cause this. So the obvious thing to do is to take the pump off, clean it, strip it, check it, fit new gaskets, make sure it's all okay. So yet more work on the shovel, so stay tuned, because this is going to go on and on. Why on earth did I buy an old Harley Davidson? Right, well, I'm going to have to let that soak for a while. Maybe I should get another piece of cloth. Trusty blue paper. So whilst that is draining itself, we shall have a look. Well, have a quick look at the spacer while you're here. And like the one on the gearbox, there is a polished line where the seal was running. Again, I can't feel anything, it's just polished. But I was told to replace them if they're like that, and replace them I will. So I've got a new one to go on, as you know, as you've seen. So let's have a look at the seal close up. Right, I don't know how well this is going to show up, but we shall have a go. I don't know if you can see, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10 and that half. And if I move it round, the focus is an issue with this, I'm afraid. Let me see if he's still in focus. Yeah, he's probably still in focus. We have next to the hole 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, just in that quarter. And that's where it's been punched from this side to make it seat. Now, whether that is sufficient to have distorted the outside, which has helped make it leak, I don't know. But either way, I'm uncertain as to which way around I'm going to fit this still. It will be a last minute decision. So let's move on. Right, onto the clutch hub assembly. There's a few marks on the pins, but the clutch was working fine beforehand, so I don't intend changing it. Parts of it are slightly bashed. I'm not entirely sure why. But anyway, again, it was working like that, so the little rollers are all good. The only thing that was wrong really was the friction plate had come undone. Now it's probably reusable, but I'm not going to. And there are some indentation marks on it from where the rivets must have rattled about. So one of the parts I was waiting for has arrived, which is a new plate. And is it American Storehouse part? Motorcycle Storehouse. It's made in America, so that's good news. So that's a new friction, which fits just about. Just check that against the old one. And then they are brass rivets, like the ones that were broken. Is that them all? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, yep. And they are semi-hollow, so they're hollow down to about there. The only thing I'm slightly nervous about is I know the tool I need, which is like a punch with a centre pin or a centre nipple and a ring around the outside. So when you put the nipple into the middle and hit it, it rolls the bead round. But I haven't got one of them, and I've been looking to see if I can find one. And although I can find ones for bigger rivets, I've not found one for this size. So I'm going to have to improvise, which is always a worry. But improvise nonetheless. So on the back it's recessed, so the rivet will head sitting like that. Yes. And then that'll go down there like that. And then I've got to squash it, of course. But it's how to do that. And the only thing I can think of is to use a rounded edge punch, which will just fit in there. Hit it to try and roll it, and then use a flatter, wider punch to compress the whole thing. Right, now there's a very real possibility that this will not work. So I'm just going to do this one, try this one, and get one in the opposite side. So this will only be loosely attached to begin with to allow me to move the plate around. If it doesn't work, you can buy rivets apparently, so fingers crossed. These are a lot tougher than I imagined. Right. Well, it's spread the top, which is what I wanted. I need to find a bigger version. Right, it's in, but it's no good. I'm going to have to try and find the right tool because it's splitting the edge of the rivet. So I'm going to have to drill that back out. I'm going to have to get some more rivets and try and find the correct tool. So where I'm going to get it from, I don't know. So if anyone knows where I can get one of these in the UK, either that or just hand it over to someone else, an engineering shop or something, let them do it, because that isn't going to work. Right, I've just drilled out the rivets, the two are put in. And I mentioned that they had split slightly where I'd fitted them. So when I put the drill on them, I thought, hang on a minute, this isn't right. The solid section was right up beyond the plate, so no matter what I did, the hollow section would always split because it was trying to turn over the solid section before the plate had been fully gripped. So I thought, well, that's peculiar. So I double checked the packet, and it clearly says, let me just read it, clutch hub liner, standard, 1941 to 1984, big twins. So it's definitely the right part. So I checked my parts book, which I downloaded, and discovered that the earlier shovelheads like mine used shorter, I don't know if you see the distance, there's not a lot in it, but enough. Use shorter rivets, which coincidentally are also completely hollow. So I'm going to try my method again. I won't show you it because you've seen what I was doing. I'm going to try my method again with the correct shorter rivets, and we'll just see how it turns out. If not, if it still won't work because my method is inherently wrong, I had to buy a pack of these, and they come in 25s. So even if I mess up a couple, it doesn't matter, and then I will just hand it over to someone else who's got a proper machine of some sort to compress them correctly. And these, a pack of 10 of these, a pack of 25 of these cost virtually the same as the whole kit with these in. So if you own a later shovel, you're all right. These will work. So I'm assuming that this bottom plate, on the clutch hub, must have been made thicker on later bikes because the actual lining is the same. So I'll just give it a go and bring it back and see what happens. Right, they're on. They're tight. They're not the neatest rollovers you've ever seen in your life, but they're secure and they're even. So that's as good as I'm going to get it, and I'm perfectly happy with that. I'm sure they'll survive. I'm not sure why the original ones on the bike split off. I really don't. But I can only assume, possibly, and I may be wrong, but possibly like I fitted the first ones, were slightly too long, which gave a small amount of movement, which made them under twist, might have put them under some sort of load. I don't know, I'm guessing. But anyway, that's good and solid. Everything's flush. It's going back on. Well, once it's all up, it's going back on. Good, let's move on.